Back with another episode of the crossover with your hosts Ravi and Brian. This week we're going to get into a couple of topics, one from the East, one from the West. Kind of like I think there's some dominant stories that are happening in each conference. So, let's talk about what's going on in the playoffs at the moment from the Eastern perspective. I think right now the big story in the East is really, unfortunately, the team that plays in this city. I feel like I don't even want to name them. I mean, such shame right now, but your Toronto Raptors in this case. Down 0-2 to Washington, heading to Washington. Ravi, your thoughts?
It's tough to find one spot where you want to start with this team. Mm-hmm. But a lot have been said with regards to coaching. Mm-hmm. If you want to talk about substitution patterns, you want to talk about the starting lineup he put out there from, some decisions around that, starting Hansbrough instead of Amir, which had a lot of success in the regular season. So a lot of questions there, a lot of questions with regards to in-game adjustments, and just overall play calling and down the stretch. Then you want to get to the players. Lack of heart. You got key guys who are not showing up in this series. Guys who look like the game's not even done yet, and these guys look like they've already quit. They're not playing with that type of resiliency that we saw last year in the playoffs and early in the season. And they're just, it's frustrating. I think we picked them 4 games to 2 or so. 4 games.
I had them in 7.
You had them in 7. Yeah. But like I said in the playoff preview, one of the things I said about the Raptors was that I think they had a very disappointing season, given that they couldn't win, they couldn't reach that 50-game mark, and I didn't like the way they finished off the season.
Right.
Dropping a lot of key games, not necessarily key games, but dropping a lot of winnable games.
Right.
And I think that's come back to haunt them. They thought they could just get into the playoffs and turn it on, and that's not the case.
Well, I think the night we were doing one of the podcasts is the night when they were playing Boston. I think I made a comment. I think Crowder hit the shot at the end of the game that kind of sealed Boston for the 7 seed. Yeah. And pretty much ended Toronto's hopes to get the 3 seed. And I told you that night, I might have said it on the show or not. I said, what? I say, are we? Why isn't DeRozan playing that night? Why are you sitting home cooled out in this case here when you're still fighting for a playoff position? Raptor fans, do you prefer playing Milwaukee now? Just saying. And when you do things like that, it just makes you wonder. To your point, what's the mentality of the team? I'll say this, man. I'm not sure if you've been following stuff that's going on Facebook with some of the fellas and stuff like that. But
I've seen it.
I'll say this much, okay? I said you offline. I'm saying online. I said, as the season went on and progressed, I said Casey, in my mind, has this year and then the early part of next year to turn this around, or he would be gone by Christmas in my mind. That timetable has accelerated because let me tell you something. If the brooms are out, he's not coming back to Toronto. He might as well pack his bags for Seattle, and he won't need to worry for a return pass. He won't be coming back with the team in August or September. He's the tip of the iceberg of everything, but I think it starts with him. We've said it before, we said it again, once again, offline, online. He sets no discipline when it comes to this team and hold people accountable. We talked about a game in Detroit where Lou Williams took a 35-foot shot to try to win a game in Detroit, which another game cost them seeding in this case. In this case, if you're watching the game, the flow of the game, DeRozan had it going that night, going straight to hoop at will against the Pistons, and then the end of the game, he runs a play for Lou Williams. For Lou Williams to wave off Valanciunas not once, but twice. And then to jack up a 35-footer. And then the coach is going to tell us at the end of the game, just pretty much I trust Lou. Really? You trust Lou? Really? Why has Lou got the ball in the first place? And second thing, why are you not calling timeout when you saw that going on? It is absolute nonsense that I'm seeing on the court. From a strategies perspective, we talk about Hansbrough. Makes no sense. Stat line 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Oh yeah, by the way, 1 foul. Wow, that's good for that. That's a genius move in this case. Let me just go with the players now. Let's I know everyone in Toronto don't want to say anything because they want to coddle and stuff like that. You know, because everyone's got their little favorite boys in this case in the city, and no one wants to dare say anything bad from them. You know, Lowry, Pitbull, this and that. Dude, if you're supposed to be the best player on this team, I'm sorry, I don't care which team you are. If your best player's not playing the way he's supposed to be playing, then you're not winning squat. And this dude's been not even just bad, not struggling, just abysmal. And this
Well,
play,
I mean, I totally agree on that point with regards to Lowry's play, and I think there was a key move in Game 1 where Lowry had his fifth foul. Vasquez was playing pretty well in the fourth, and he took Vasquez out. He wasn't too happy about it. Lowry came in, and a few minutes later picked up his sixth foul. And he was gone. And they had a little bit of momentum going there. I mean,
right.
Those are the types of plays, especially in playoff basketball, that can make that difference.
Right.
Yes, they went into overtime. They were able to come back, hit some shots, and went into OT. But had he kept Vasquez in, who knows?
Right.
I mean, it may not even came to that, right?
And the lack of discipline by Lowry about the type of fouls he's getting. I mean, that third foul he got essentially is the turning point in the game. And you can see DeRozan's reactions, like saying, like, dude, are you kidding me? What Washington's done is they've gone through their scouting report like a good team's supposed to do, look and see, okay, you know what? You like to gamble. We're gonna make you pay since you like to gamble. You don't account for details on defense. You're ball watching all half the time and not 3/4 of the time. So every time you ball watch, we're gonna blow right past you. And that's what happened on that third foul. You sit there looking at the ball in the corner. In this case, our Porter just said, "Well, I'll just go right down the middle, right down Young Street, and here you go." And then he's caught in a bad position. If it was a foul, not a foul is not the point. The point is you put yourself in the position that you had to go and make that play.
Yeah.
Terrence Ross won't be in the league in 3 years. Mark my words, folks. Won't be in the league in 3 years. If he is, he's sitting on someone's bench just catching a check. That's about it.
The clock's ticking.
The clock's ticking.
Yeah.
He won't be playing no significant role on any team after this season, as far as I'm concerned. He'll get 1 year where someone will try him for fool's goal, and then it'll be like, yeah, it's been fun.
Hey, it might be your team in Dallas.
Dream on. We'll get to them in a second. And and to your point, the lack of heart. As far as I'm concerned, I'll say it here. I thought Lowry quit the other night. I'll say it. I know in this case it's a harsh thing to say about an athlete, but I didn't like what I saw for him, and I didn't like what I saw for a lot of the dudes. As far as I'm concerned, the only dudes that showed up that day was pretty much Patterson for both games. DeRozan, I think, has played pretty well considering the circumstance. He shot 50% last night. I thought he played pretty well. And JV last night played pretty well. After that, the rest of the dudes, they're looking for the other 9, 10 dudes on the team. They can't find anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see it coming. I did not see them dropping the first 2 games at home to Washington, and I mean, I think that really seals the deal in my mind, because I don't see them going to Washington and winning 2 games.
The series is done. Okay.
It's done. It's done.
We now to determine how long we want to keep the horse before we shoot it in the pasture. That's pretty much what it comes down.
That's exactly it. And I think, I mean, even if you go back to the trading deadline, I mean, their decision to not to keep the team as is and not make a move at the trading deadline to get some size or to get a little more athleticism up front. I mean, I think that's come back to haunt them right now.
Well, there's a bit of a rumor or thread going around the last couple of days wondering about that. And one theory is, to your point, that he stayed pat and was conservative, in this case, Masai. There's another growing group in this case, after some comments were said by, I think, Ryan Wolfstadt, I think after the second game, saying it was a part of a strategy for him to stay pat in this case, because in this case he wanted to let this team not only play it out, but he wanted to say, okay, you know what, we're gonna live and die by this team. I'm not gonna put good money. What's the phrase in this? Good money. Put good money on bad investment, pretty much. So I'm not gonna go and make trades and give away draft picks for a team that I know in this case is not going any further than maybe the second round. So now it's like, okay, the scab has been ripped off. We now see what we have. There's probably 3 pieces in this case here are worthwhile. The rest could probably go.
Yeah.
At that point. And there will be major changes this summer. And he said it straight at the time. He says we're a summer team. We're not a mid-season team. So we'll see how it plays out with the Raptors. I'm definitely going to be I might have to do a serious podcast just on a little beyond the locker room one on the autopsy when it's done with the Raps, because there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with that. All right, so moving on to, we kind of segue to the West, and you kind of hinted at it. Oh boy, talk about autopsies. Oh my gosh. As a Mavericks fan, it's not been a good day for teams I like in this case. Because I was simply deal with, the only team I'm not missing is the Pistons. I'm just dealing with my teams here. So Dallas, as I said, when we did this podcast the day, I think the trade happened that day, and we had our podcast that night. And I said, you thought I had pom-poms waiting. I was like, nah, I don't like how this feels. I said, this is a square peg in a round hole. Don't like what I'm seeing. I'm concerned about this deal. And boy, it's blown up like no one's business. That was a meltdown I watched the other night.
It was an absolute meltdown. I mean, Rondo played 10 minutes, picked up 4 fouls, and Carlisle yanked him out the game. Didn't play him for the rest of the game.
Well, not just that. The nonsense he's doing Harden, like, dude.
Well, the stuff he's doing with, I mean, all the I haven't gone to the extracurricular stuff with him pushing Harden and all that type of stuff. Now I'm gonna go 2 ways on this one. So, does Carlisle deserve some of the blame? To a certain extent, because I think one of your jobs as a coach is to figure out how to get your players to buy in, how to read certain guys. We've seen Phil Jackson do that over the years with Dennis Rodman, Isaiah Ryder for that one season with the Lakers. And then some other guys. Pat Riley's done that in Miami with some of the guys. He's at Beasley to a certain extent. So one of your jobs and responsibilities as a head coach is to reach these guys, find the best way to have them be effective and contribute towards your team. Now, that being said, I mean, Carlisle is a championship coach, and it seems like the rest of the team is bought in. So Rondo's that one guy who's just used to doing things his way.
Right.
Now with Rondo, Rondo's always a guy where he needs to have the perfect coach, the right coach, the right type of system.
Yeah, he's high maintenance.
The right players around him. Jupiter and Mars have to be lined up for him to be effective. It's just ridiculous. And he's used to he has a certain lanes where he's effective, and Carlisle is basically saying, on this team, we don't need you to do that. We need you to be in this lane. And he's shown that it's an unwillingness to do so. And I think he's hurt his value when it comes to his value on the free agent market. I think that has dropped. If you want to talk about the back injury or just his attitude and overall play, he's a guy. He's obviously lost a step or two, and he's never been a great outside shooter. By any stretch. And how old is he now? 30, 31
no, I don't
or so?
think he's that old, man. I think he's like 28 or 29.
Yeah?
Yeah, because he came out early, right, from school. And so I think the thing is, too, that probably messed up is that he was pretty successful because when he came out, pretty much the big three came together. He's just been in our faces and in our world from a hoop standpoint for such an early age. Like, I think it's like season 2 or 3, they were in the finals when he was there. He's
in a very funny situation right now, because I always say when personality starts trumping production, your days are pretty much numbered.
Oh, for sure.
If you look at, and I love to get your opinion on this, because if you take Rondo at his best, at his peak, I think if you take Rondo at his peak and put him in today's NBA, I don't think he'd be a top 5 point guard.
Well, that was the point I was going to make. How the game's changed since Rondo's been hurt. I think that's the biggest thing that's going to hurt him in the offseason. Because no one really plays point that way anymore.
No.
Everybody moves the ball around for the most part and, penetrate the kick out and stuff like that. Rondo wants to probe and probe and probe. That type of point guard just doesn't exist anymore. And let's face it, I don't care what generation you're in or what era you're in. Point guards that shoot like 40% from the free throw line, you ain't getting no big contract. Not
at all. Not at all.
I'm sorry. Why am I paying you like $14, $15 million? And you can't ever play in the fourth quarter, and they're doing hack or Rondo, whatever they want to do, because you can't shoot free throws. It's bad enough you can't shoot jump shots. Fine. That means you got to have a skill set to get in the lane and stuff like that and create. Fine. But you're not even doing that anymore. You're not shooting the jump shot. You can't hit free throws. You're not even hitting at the pace you were hitting pre-injury, which was like 60-something%.
Yeah.
So why am I taking a chance? And then the last point, which is on the defensive end, you got to start wondering a little bit: is it the injury, or maybe in this case here? Hey, when you had Kevin Garnett behind you, it looked pretty good. You could gamble and do what you need to do. You know.
Yeah, I mean, you had Kevin Garnett, you had Jeff Green, you had a bunch of guys,
Well,
behind
yeah.
you.
Well, Jeff Green, him didn't play too much, but if you look at his prime years, at least from what we've seen, when you had Garnett and you had like guys like the year they won the championship with what's his name, Posey, and guys like that have the length and stuff to cover up for your things when you're gambling. Life's good. Once you notice that when that doesn't happen, it's like, oh, okay, folks start getting exposed a little bit. Exactly. And I'm just wondering, if it's the injury. Either way, it's not a good look. Now, I will get a good joke in this case when I see on January the 8th, July 8th, and I see it in my little ticker in this case, and I look at it like this, like, oh, Los Angeles Lakers have signed Rajon Rondo to a 4-year
I'll tell you
deal.
right now. I'm going to put it out there right now. I mentioned this to you earlier in the week. I'm very concerned about this move because I would say if the Lakers want to go ahead and give him a 1-year deal, $5 million at best.
You can see it. You can see it coming down the road. It's like a big steaming truck coming down.
Well, Kobe's already made comments earlier in the year, and I don't. At this point, Kobe's last year, his anticipated last year, next season. I don't think they're going to make any moves to really pacify Kobe. His last year.
Yeah.
So that's. I'm not too worried about that aspect of it.
But they gotta have some type of transition player though.
My goodness! Can you imagine Kobe Bryant and Rondo in the backcourt? That's not even a backcourt. That's a way backcourt. That's a throwback court.
Exactly. And then throw in Byron Scott as your coach, who's already got a philosophy of like, which is like old school to the old school. Like, oh boy, you think it's bad now?
Like I said, I hope they stay away from Rondo. But if they do decide to go down that road with him, it has to be the first year of that deal has to be maximum $5 million because I would not pay him more than that at this point. And if they're a second year, it has to be performance incentives.
I think he's gonna get about $10 million.
I won't be surprised if he gets $10 million, but I'm just hoping it's not for my team.
I agree with you. It's scary because Rondo's not even one of the best 15 point guards in the league. No,
not at all. Not at all. We've already said. I think the play at the point guard position has it's passed him by. Since he was at his peak in 07, 08, 09, around there.
Yeah, I would say. I would go up, man. I think he was because when they played the Lakers second time in the finals.
2010.
2010, right?
So yeah.
Those the following year when they got knocked out by Miami, right? Miami's first year was the Big Three.
2011.
Right, and he went off in that playoffs. That to me was like his peak of all his powers. 2011. I love that phrase. But that was the truth, though. Like he was like. You arguably say he was as good as LeBron in that series. Like he dropped a 40-point game in Miami in Game 1 or something. He was ridiculous. But to your point, the thing with Rondo is he likes to turn a switch on and off. He likes to turn that switch on and off, and he just has a stubbornness factor in terms of doing things his way. And you're not that type of player. Like I said, when personality starts trumping production, your days are numbered. And he's never had that type of game where he's an elite guy. Where if you look at Boogie Cousins, his game is saving him from a lot of other stuff right now. Because he's producing and was putting up with his bad attitude to a certain extent, right? So Rondo has never had that level of game where you're willing to overlook all the other nonsense that he does. Yeah.
And I think in Boston you had the big three to really keep him in check to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So now that he has to pick his battles because with regards to the Mavericks, Carlisle's going to be coaching a lot longer than he'll be playing.
True. Well, we'll wrap it up on there. Maybe it's the water in Kentucky. We'll leave it at that. Quick comment, just a one statement, your thoughts on the firing of Brooks. Maybe we'll get a chance to discuss it later on, but we're running out of time, so what do you think?
Well, you talked about, seeing that train coming. I think this is another one we saw that train coming. For the past 7 seasons, he's shown that inability to get the job done. Obviously, this year it was lots of injuries, but aside from that, he's had enough time to make an impact. They got to the finals once, they couldn't get the job done, but we'll see. I think going into the summer, we'll see if if KD, a lot of talk about him possibly going to Washington. Lots of talk of maybe Westbrook going to LA. We'll see. But I think we saw this one coming. It's not a big surprise.
Nope. And I'll just say this smells of desperation. And it's too late. It's too late. So I'm sorry to say so, man. They should have done that. They should have done that deed like 2-3 years ago. Anyhow,
yeah, exactly.
Anyhow, we'll leave it at that. Where can the good folks find you?
You guys can find me at Mr. Ravi_Porvita.
And you can find me at Beyond Locker Room, short form RM, man. Folks, take care. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.